Yo, what's up guys? We got Pokeaim here. Today I have another moveset video guide on how to use Galarian Articuno. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, you like competitive Pokemon, you like Wi-Fi battles, you like Showdown lives, feel free to sub. It says like, 50% of you guys are not subs, so feel free to sub. I mean, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about Galarian Articuno. Cool ability, competitive, basically for every stat drop that it gets from an opponent, it raises special attack by +2. So for example, Intimidate activates on this Pokemon, gets +2 special attack, so making it pretty strong, especially with coming off of its base 125 special attack stat. Now, being psychic and flying in a metagame without pursuit actually works in Articuno's favor, especially because it doesn't really have coverage for like common dark types. I would say like Tyranitar, right? Hurricane's really good versus Pokemon like Urshifu, and decent versus Mandibuzz as well. But it doesn't have the strongest coverage, and like a Heatran will just straight up wall this Pokemon to an extent, depending on the actual set. But yeah, very strong on the special attacking side, and its new move, Freezing Glare, has a 10% chance to freeze. I'm really glad they made it 10% and not 30%. That'd be absolutely broken. Let's get into the first set. So the first set is actually not going to only require you to have a Galarian Articuno, but it's one that really appreciates Pokemon like Tapu Bulu and Rillaboom because it's a Grassy Seed Calm Mind Stored Power set. So basically this takes advantage of the fact that Articuno has a pretty good speed tier and okay defense stat, so this will actually give it another defensive stat right there, +1 defense, and with the ability of Calm Mind and being one of the only birds, actually the only bird out of the Galarian forms to have reliable recovery, right? There's no roost on any of these birds, but this one has recover, thankfully. So it actually makes the stored power set that much stronger. So not only do you start with an initial boost for your stored power, but you have Calm Mind to boost you even more. Stored power obviously is your offensive option right there. Recover for longevity, and then your last move can be either Air Slash or Hurricane. Air Slash obviously being more reliable, Hurricane just being stronger with the initial Calm Minds, doing way more damage, like knocking out, for example, a Rillaboom at just neutral. So that's like the reason you use Hurricane over Air Slash potentially, but because you do have a defense raise from the Grassy Seed, if you're fighting an opposing Rillaboom and your item is gone, knockoff isn't going to actually be, knocking you out. So that's just something to keep in mind. But the idea of this thing is pair it with something like Rillaboom or Tapu Bulu. I like Rillaboom a little bit more because of a U-turn. It also threatens Pokemon like Heatran with superpower or high horsepower. Can obviously threaten Tyranitar, which is something that definitely weakens this thing or scares this thing out because this mon can't really do too much. And just abuse that and get the stored power going immediately. The next set is pretty fun. We have Choice Spec set. Now, again, while this Pokemon doesn't have the best coverage, it's not that terrible. There's only like 2 Pokemon that immediately come to mind that can always wall Galarian Articuno, at least an offensive one, and that's Tyranitar, like I said, as well as Heatran. But Choice Specs is pretty cool because it has that base 125 special attack stat, and Freezing Glare is nice, right? It's a Psychic type attack, 90 base power, 100% accuracy, 16 PP, that has a 10% chance to freeze the opponent. And it actually looks really, really cool in the game itself. But obviously with competitive, that can be cool too, because if a Landers tries to come in, or you bring it in on a double that you know your opponent's going to bring out Landers, you get that nice little boost on top of that Choice Specs. Beautiful. So Freezing Glare and Hurricane, I think you do want Hurricane here just because the damage from a Choice Specs Hurricane is so much. Like you're 2-KOing Pokemon like Mandibuzz in that sale, right? Whereas Air Slash would not be able to do that. Obviously, Air Slash has a higher chance of hitting though, so be careful. U-turn is the third move. I think that's always necessary. If they have Tyranitar, you want to be able to wear it down, right, with U-turn, even if you're doing like 15% as it comes in. Just being able to do that, get momentum. Same thing if Heatran comes in, and then going out to your answer to it, or something that can wear it down. Then we have either Shadow Ball or Psyshock. Shadow Ball is actually like the only coverage this Pokemon gets, but it's not bad because it allows it to deal with Age Slash, which is another mon that can also straight up wall Freezing Glare as well as Hurricane. But because they gave it Shadow Ball, it gives you a nice option of hitting that Pokemon. That's basically for that. Also does about like 25 to 30% to Heatran, which is more than your usual moves. That's like a special defensive Heatran, so on 20-something%. So if you don't want to use Shadow Ball, you can use Psyshock, and the only additional thing over Psyshock that it has over Freezing Glare is that it can 2-KO Blissey, which is pretty important for a special attacker, but also it can help deal massive damage to Calm Mind Pokemon like Clefable or just Pokemon that are boosted on the special side. I think Clefable is the big one that comes to mind as Though if it is physically defensive, it's still not going to be doing that much to Clef. But it's a nice hefty chunk considering it's coming off of 125 base special attack. Like, I mean, you're doing 42 to 50%. So, and most Clefables get knocked off, most get paralyzed. You're doing more than your Freezing Glare after they start combining up. Just to, like, after a few combines, obviously. So, just something to keep in mind. So next up we have a Combined Recover set. This one is, instead of using the, it's Combined Recover like the first one, but instead of using Grassy, you're using Heavy Duty Boots or Weakness Policy. And it's an offensive Combine set more so. So we have Combine, Psyshock, or Freezing Glare. Again, Psyshock is cool because it will allow you to not only beat blobs like Blissey, but also beat opposing Combine Pokemon like Clefable. You can sit up alongside them and beat them 1v1, just anything with high special defense. Then Recover is your last move. Again, you can run Psyshock or Freezing Glare. Freezing Glare is a very strong move. Well, not very strong, but 90 versus 80 makes a difference. And it has that chance to freeze the opponent, which is pretty cool. So you can use that, especially if you want to win Combine Wars by freezing your opponent. Or like, even like, let's say a Celesteela comes out on you and you go for Freezing Glare as they switch in. You have that ability to potentially knock them, basically render them useless because you freeze them. Now, the other reason why Freezing Glare is there is because while I do have Heavy Duty Boots as the main item here, you can potentially slash Weakness Policy, and with Weakness Policy you can set up on something like Zapdos as long as it doesn't paralyze you with Discharge, and you Combined up, because defensive Zapdos, you Combined up, and after a Combine and after your Weakness Policy, Freezing Glare is 100% KO on defensive Zapdos, so that's a cool option for that. Obviously Recover for longevity, and then either Air Slash or Hurricane. Talked about the pros of both. Air Slash doesn't miss, Hurricane, well, Air Slash can miss, but it's 95% accuracy versus Hurricane 70% accuracy. But of course, Hurricane immediately is going to knock out Pokemon like Rillaboom, Pokemon like Tapu Bulu, you know, unboosted, just because this mon is, unless they're like special defensive in Tapu Bulu's case. But yeah, so just unboosted, but obviously you have to risk that accuracy. This is cool, just an offensive Combine option if you want to use it. I feel like this is going to be pretty nice in lower tiers, especially because of its base 95 speed, which is usually okay in certain tiers. Next up, we have a Substitute Combine set, and I think again that this right here, it kind of reminds me of it kind of reminds me of like Latias, right? Mega Latias. They used to do things like Sub, Combined, and then Sub obviously allows you to avoid your opponent's status move, right? Toxapex from going for Toxic. That's like the big thing that Toxapex can do to you. So Sub and Combine are there. You either run Heavy Duty Boots or Leftovers. Heavy Duty Boots obviously for avoiding Stealth Rock damage, which is important, but you can also run Leftovers just for the longevity. And either Recover or Air Slash as your third move. I think your third move depends on your fourth move, right? So if you run Recover, then you're going to go Mono Psychic. And I think if you're going Mono Psychic, I think you go something like Stored Power, because it's Sub, Combine, Recover, Stored Power. And again, this is really going to benefit from like Toxic Spikes. This is going to benefit from Fighting types and Fairy types that get rid of the opposing Dark type greatly, right? So if you run Recover, you can run Stored Power. If you don't run Recover, I think Sub, Combine, Air Slash, Freezing Glare is completely fine too. Together, and again, just avoiding status and whatnot. You would probably run Leftovers in that case, just because you don't have the recovery that Recover actually brings. Just max HP, max speed, using its overall decent bulk to set up on more passive mons that you scare out. Tangrowth, Toxapex, you know, and on the less passive side, Rillaboom, which you are faster than. I think that max speed is, I feel like on these sets, like, I mean, you can always tailor your EV spread to whatever tier it's in. Like, these are just filler EV spreads, right? Max HP, max speed. Those are like the go-to where you start. And then you start to say, okay, well, what's common in this metagame? Okay, well, the fastest Pokemon that I want to be able to beat that's really common in this metagame is Rillaboom. So I will go more than 295 speed. The number 295. You go higher than the number 295. But in OU, you have Pokemon like Landorus, Pokemon like Excadrill. So maybe you want to go max speed as well. Potentially speed time with Kyurem Black or regular Kyurem as well. Well, not that might matter in a 1v1 scenario, right? They'll beat you 1v1, but if you're boosted, you have a chance to do some massive damage to them. So why not have the speed tie at least? Next up, we have one that I think will be really cool in lower tiers too. And again, this can probably be more special defensive. And honestly, I feel like this Pokemon would be a lot better if it had like Toxic or Defog, but there's no Toxic TM in this current one. If you have Toxic, you have to bring your Pokemon back from the the previous generations. And yeah, but I feel like this would be really cool, like in lower tiers, like I said, like a support type of Articuno, but not even support. This is offensive Future Sight. So if you guys didn't know how Future Sight works, it hits 2 turns after being used. It's 120 base power, and it's coming off of Articuno's base 125 special attack set. So it's really cool because obviously when Articuno comes out, you go for Future Sight. They bring in their Dark type immediately, right? You might be faster than most Dark types, so you can go for U-turn on them. Get some chip, there's no pursuit, you get some super effective chip, and let's say you bring out your fighting type, that's going to scare them out. So you have a fighting type in, that's 1 turn that has passed. You have a fighting type in, they have the dark type in, they're going to switch the hell out. So what resists fighting type attacks? You got, well, psychic obviously, but you also have like, you know, typings like fairy, and also typings like poison. So they bring out their wall, you go for, let's just say for argument's sake, your fighting type was Conkeldurr, you go for close combat, something comes in like Toxapex, and after taking the close combat, at the end of the turn, it takes Future Sight, it dies. And you've just made a way for your fighting type to win. So Future Sight plus U-turn I think is really cool too. I put Hurricane as a second move just because this mon is going to be a full-on support mon, right? Like full-on offensive support mon, right? It gets off damage, and U-turns the hell out. And then, of course, Recover is there for the last move, and just a cool option to use Future Sight on this Pokemon. I feel like it's actually has some use on this. And again, I don't want to compare it to like Slowking, Assault Vest Slowking, because Assault Vest Slowking is Regenerator and uses Future Sight and can Dragon Tail and Force switches and stuff like that. Whereas Articuno doesn't necessarily have those options. Like it doesn't unfortunately get Roar, and it doesn't get like Whirlwind or anything like that, as far as I know. So I think it's still pretty cool. Nice little option, again, U-turn for momentum, and something I think we might see with obviously like a bulkier EV spread could work too. I wanted to give these guys Roost. I'm not even mad about this one. This recovers completely fine, but like Roost on Zapdos, Roost on Moltres, there's so much they could have done. And last but not least, I could not help myself but use this item on a Pokemon with competitive, a Pokemon with store power. We have a Pokemon that uses Hurricane. We have Blunder Policy, offensive Calm Mind with Hypnosis. So the way Blunder Policy works is if you miss an attack, your speed is raised by +2. So really nice for Articuno, effectively putting it over 600 speed. Very hard to revenge kill. And it has some nice moves that can miss, right? It has Hypnosis, which is only 60% accuracy, and then you have Hurricane, which has 70%. So it's Hypnosis, Calm Mind, Store Power, and Hurricane. Obviously, if they have Tyranitar, Heatran, you want them gone. But this is like a Hail Mary type of sweep. So there's good things and bad things. Like, let's say you go for Hypnosis and you hit. Great, the opponent is asleep now, and you can go for Calm Mind, right? And then you get your boost, right? And then you can go for Hypnosis on something else, and if you miss, you're good. Let's say you go for Hurricane and you miss something comes in. Now you can immediately start trying to sweep. You get the +2 speed boost, which is great for boosting your stored power. You have Hypnosis as well to potentially hit that, put them to sleep. Then you can go for Calm Mind, boosting your stored power even more, and giving you a nice little Blunder Policy potential sweep on this Pokemon. I think this is a really exciting one. I don't think currently I could try this in OU and work with it, but this Pokemon is definitely going to be falling down. We're going to have some tier changes. Actually, what is it? This is going up Sunday, so today we'll have tier changes. It's Saturday when I'm recording this, but yeah, we'll definitely have some tier changes today. I'm sure there's things you could do with like expanding Force on like, I don't know, with Tapu Lele builds, or something with Rest as well. Maybe Tailwind. It does have Trick Room as well, but it's a really fast Pokemon, so I'm not really feeling that. But I think the reason they gave it Trick Room is because they also gave it Imprison, so that's more like an anti-VGC tag, right? It would be like Trick Room, and you'd run Imprison, that way opposing teams couldn't Trick Room, and then you threaten stuff with attack. So I feel like that's something why they had that there. Another option that they have is like Cycle Shift, so you could do like Rest, Sleep Talk, Psycho Shift, and what you do is you actually Psycho Shift your sleep to somebody else, which is pretty cool. Or like even like a Flame Orb Psycho Shift, like a Sigilyph type of thing, and the plus of that would be that you couldn't be poisoned by something because you'd already be burnt. But yep, just some options that this Pokemon does have. Again, EV spreads are always up to you. Ancient Power is also an option in this Pokemon as a coverage move. Rock isn't the strongest coverage move on. Well, Rock is a really good coverage move. Don't get me wrong. Rock and Ground are just fantastic coverage moves to have, but as an Ancient Power, like as weak as Ancient Power is, I feel like that's just not the option that you want in this Pokemon. But maybe it is. Who knows? So let me know if you guys use this Pokemon as well. Let me know if you have any success with it. And I guess you can also do like dual screens because it's decently fast. But man, that's kind of whack. Like, I feel like if I want to use this Mon, I'm either going to attack, I'm going to try and sweep, or I want to try Future Sight. But yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, my friends.